Hello consumers, I'm Altari the Professional Gamer, and this is the first episode in our Fresh Start New Character series where we create Pax Ian, or as I'd like to call him, Pax Ian, and we start off fresh and go through the entire process of what you do when you get into Pax Dei. And many people can choose to take many different paths here, but this is just kind of the standard path of getting started, getting all of the materials that you need, starting to find a homestead, building a couple of things, getting your crafting started, and then meeting up with friends and going off into the wilderness and exploring some POIs. All of that being said, this is definitely very much so an alpha game where we are testing it actively. So if we encounter any bugs along the way, that is the nature of this alpha. And it is important for everyone to remember to go ahead and report those by pressing F8 so that the dev team can get all of that feedback and make Pax Dei the best game that they possibly can. All of that being said, if you haven't done so already and you enjoy all of this Pax Dei content, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, like if this is the type of content you enjoy, and share this video with any of your friends who are interested in Pax Dei. Hopefully all of you are able to make it into the Home Valley Alpha, but if you are unable to, rest assured we will be covering as much of the content as we possibly can. Now I'm going to hand it off to Altari to get this thing started. Hello and welcome back, all of you consumers of Pax Dei content. I'm Altari the Professional Gamer, and today we are going to be starting out on our Fresh Start tutorial character. We made him in a previous video that you can check out if you're interested in the character creation parts of Pax Dei, but here he is. We made him. His name is Pax Ian, or Pax Ian for short, and we are going to go ahead and get in-game. This video is pretty much going to be us going through everything that you would be doing when you start off with a new character in Pax Dei. So we're going to be collecting resources, finding our homestead location. We are going to place a plot, build everything up, and get started on some crafting. There are a lot more videos that we have planned coming out with all of the advanced crafting guides to come. And we also have a very good set of tutorials that we were so graciously sponsored to do by Mainframe, detailing everything from basic controls to how to sync up with your friends and get to playing Pax Dei. You should totally check that out. There's a link up above as well as down in the description. And thank you again, Mainframe, for giving us this opportunity. But let's go ahead and get into the creation with Pax Ian, and we are gonna just get going. Before too long is right about now, and holy crap, the wind that is blowing the grass off in the distance. We've got this nice morning dusk going for us, and there is a bunch of stuff for us to do. Now, for those of you wondering, this little stone obelisk here, this is called a holy shrine, and I'll pull it up on the map. You can see right here, sorry, holy site. We're still learning some terminology, but the holy site, there's at least one of these that spawns in every single Home Valley province. And you can see right here we have, for our character, if you do want to come, if you're in the alpha and visit any of the stuff that we've made, this is where Pax Ian is. He is located in Cary's province and the Paladin Home Valley, so that's where we're starting off. But if you're trying to get in sync with any of your friends that are also in the alpha, basically when you spawn into a Home Valley, you're going to be spawning at one of these holy sites. So you want to look up your friends. That's how you get to them as quickly as possible. So we spawned in exactly at morning time, so we have a lot of daytime to get to work here. And first things first, we are just going to go ahead and start picking up some resources. You can see here, picked up a tree branch and it unlocked a bunch of new crafting recipes. So that's pretty much what the very beginning of Pax Dei is going to be about. You're going to just be going out into the world, gathering resources, and building the tools that you need to continue to level things up. It's very similar to games like Valheim, if you're familiar with that. So that's what we're going to do. And when we start off, we are going to need to craft a bunch of crafting stations, and to do that we need to find a homestead somewhere that we can place a plot down and get to crafting. So the first couple of things that we need to do, since it's not nighttime, we don't really need a torch, but we are going to need a stone axe so we can start gathering some wood, and we'll also need to get a construction hammer. So it looks like we have enough wood to build a one-handed stone axe, so we're going to go ahead and do that. And you can see here the way that the crafting system works is you have a difficulty that's associated with it, and that has to do with your skill level versus the skill level that is required to build the resource or build the tool that you're trying to build. And essentially you have these two bars that are going to come from the left and the right. You have the blue bar, that is the one that you like, and the red bar, which is the one that we don't like. And they are going to progress, and whichever one passes this little middle caret right here, that is what is going to determine whether or not you craft the item that you're trying to craft. So in this case, we were successful. We did build a one-handed stone axe, and we are going to go ahead and drag that into our inventory. Now, another thing for those of you who might not have watched our tutorial video or anything like that, when you press tab, you will open up your inventory space, and you can have however many boxes these are. I believe it's 6, 8 times 3, so 24 different slots here. And then you can also utilize your number slots as inventory space as well. So technically we can store up to 32 things on our character. And that is how you do that. You can also press I to get to this inventory menu, but for the most part, I'm going to leave all of the tutorial stuff to our tutorial video, and you can go and check that tutorial playlist out here in the future. So we have not scouted out this location to see where a good place is to place our plot, and that is okay because Pax Dei is about the adventure, and that's what we're here to do. We might as well go ahead and chop down a tree though, and one of the important things to note here is all trees are not created equal. You can see that when I try and chop this one down, it is too hard. Don't be afraid, that's not a bug. You actually need to craft a stronger axe in order to be able to take advantage of that. And one of my tips for all of you new players is, as with any initial survival game experience, it's really beneficial for you to just pick up everything that you see on the ground. You can throw it away eventually if you don't need it, but it is really useful, especially when you're first learning recipes. There's no really good way to know what unlocks what, especially when you're starting off at the very beginning. So just pick everything up and that'll pretty much tell you what you need to know. Now, we are going to have to go and find some weaker trees that we can actually chop down, and this is actually a task that you will find to be difficult depending on where you spawn in. So we're just going to go around and find some trees right now that we can chop down so we can get some more wood. Additionally, if you are walking around, there are some places that exist, even in these starter zones, that have wood that has just fallen on the ground, like the one that we picked up earlier, and that is actually a really efficient way for you to get wood early on in the game, because this stone axe has a really difficult time actually chopping things down. Now, if at any point, we probably just saw this, there are some stutters in the game. I would like to reiterate, as with all of our videos that we're putting out, that Pax Dei is very much so in an alpha game state. And for those of you who know game development, I'm not altogether too familiar with it at this point, but it is my understanding that optimization, even for early access games, doesn't really happen until most of the systems are in the game and you're mostly feature complete. So this game is very stable for the most part, but you will see on occasion as we're playing some pretty big stutters and stuff like that as things are loading in. That also could have in part a little bit to do with my computer rig, and at some point we will include a link down below if you are interested in what we are running on, and that will definitely improve as time goes on as well so that we can have better videos for y'all. So we have picked up a couple of tree branches here, which should be more than enough for us to go ahead and craft a construction hammer. We are going to go ahead and do one of those, and we might have an opportunity to see what a failure looks like. Nope, we don't fail here. So there we go. We now have our hammer, and we are going to be able to set off into the wilderness and start looking for a place for us to build. Now, in terms of places and where you would like to build, there are a couple of different opinions on this that I have. One, you obviously want to build in a place that works for you, that really resonates with kind of what you want to build and how you want to build. But it is also important to note that resources are very critical to being able to build what you want in Pax Dei. So if you build something that is really, really far away from particular resources, you are going to be setting yourself up to have really long travel times while you're gathering resources. So as long as you're okay with that, that is more than fine. But it is just really important that when you're building, you know exactly what kind of resources you actually need and where to get those resources when you are building. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to keep walking down this way, and we are going to make ourselves we are going to make our way down to the river. I think we might actually just make a beeline down here and see if we can build near this lake and see if there's a nice scenic location there. So we'll go off the beaten path and make our way down there. It is also important to note that there are some quite violent critters that exist in these forests here. It is not a perfectly safe forest. There are bears, badgers, foxes, and wolves out there looking to kill you, and as an early game character, we have pretty much nothing to defend ourselves except this stone hand axe, and we might be able to make good work of one or two of these creatures, but if we aggro more than one, it might spell death for us. Eventually, we will also be going after some deer here because they are a great source of hide, but it'll take a while for us to get there. Might not be in this episode. All right, so we can see off in the distance that there looks to be a little bit of a spooky pine forest over there in that direction. And that is actually a pretty good location to be near because of mob spawns that are going to be there. It will be useful for us to gather some early game resources and possibly even some armor if we play our game right. But I think we are going to make our way a little bit further down this way through this forest down here and closer to the lake river area down here. So we'll be back once we get there. All right, so we are currently going through the forest here, and I just wanted to bring attention to all of you that in Pax Dei, at least right now, fall damage is something that can really, really hurt you. And while this in most games looks like a very easily navigable obstacle, you will actually die if you try and go down this steep cliffside right here. And one of the things to note is that little rock face right here is something that your character is going to really easily slide on. And the damage for fall damage right now is multiplicative. So if you try and go down that cliffside and you start sliding, once you hit ground that you don't slide on anymore, you will take a lot of damage. You might not die from it, but you will take a lot of damage, and we don't really have a way of healing ourselves right now, so we're just going to avoid that completely. And I'll get back to you all when we get to the lake. Alright, so we have cut through most of the forest here, and we're coming up on a location that might be a good place for us to build our nice little homestead. And as we come up to it, there is another thing that I wanted to bring to all of y'all's attention, and it is these holy sites right here, which are spawn points. And the thing about these obelisks is that they're also a location that you can teleport to in game, and I will show you how that teleportation works in a bit. But use that to your advantage in this alpha. I don't know how long these respawn holy shrines are going to be teleportable to, and it really does help in saving time, especially when you're trying to gather resources. Now, the way that these spawns work is when you die, if you respawn, you will come to whatever's the closest respawn point. But if you're teleporting, you will also teleport to whatever the closest respawn point is as well. So let's say there is some really useful resources over here. Technically, instead of having to walk the full way, I could walk a little over half the distance and then teleport, and I'll be instantly there. And then likewise, I could get half of the way back and teleport here as well. Now, while we're talking about teleporting, we also must note that we can teleport back to our home plot as long as we're in the same region as our home plot. So wherever we place our actual buildings, we'll be able to get back to very, very quickly as well. So if you're thinking about resource gathering and trying to make an optimal path there, then that would be where you should take that into consideration. Now, right here we have this peaceful, serene little bay area right here. And right off the bat, oh, we can see some players over there. Right off the bat, I do see a couple of locations that might be really useful for us to start building near. And it looks like I can also see a boar off in the distance. Let's keep going down the road a bit and we'll see what we find. Oh, that is actually a bear. Those are things that we do not want to mess with right now. And all of this area right here is technically inside the same home valley. And when we're looking at the map, you can tell what demarcates the home valleys by these red lines. So whenever you pass over one of these, you're technically changing into a different server. So you can only build inside of one of these regions. So Paladin or Bronnier or Awas or Tremin, Dolivan, Lida, and I believe that's it for this particular province. But it's just important to note, so if you're looking for somewhere to build, don't plan on going past those red lines if you are trying to build something. And we'll keep exploring here, and I'll see y'all back when we find a good plot location. Alright, I think we have found something promising here. We're going to come over the crest of this hill and see what we've got. And this is looking like a pretty good location, though if you know me, you know that I like to build on top of a scenic shot here, so we're going to go all the way up and see if there's a good location through this forest for us to be able to build on. This location also looks like it is a pretty good spot in terms of resources for us to build into. And some of these rocks you can also place foundations on, so that's something good to note as well. And it looks like we have a decent amount of forest that we can work with here, as well as a really nice scenic shot of this river. Let's go ahead and try claiming a plot and find out what we can, where we can build here. Alright, so in order to claim a plot, all you have to do is right-click when you have your hammer pulled out, and you're going to have a bunch of different options, and what we're looking for is the plot option to be selected, and you'll see here that you have an unclaimed plot. To start off, we're all given one plot, and it is also important for you to note that you only get one plot per account that you own, so we should all only have one plot here. Now I'm thinking we're gonna try to build right about here. So you can see that white circle that was placed on the ground, and that is actually demarcating your plot location. So as long as it is a white circle or a white line going around, that means that you're able to place the plot. If it ever turns orangish red, that means that you won't be able to place it and you need to start looking for another location. It's also important to note that you cannot place your plots too close to points of interest, which are things that you can see on the maps here. So things like holy sites or respawn locations, or also these other POIs that exist, different types of ruins or fortresses or camps or caves and stuff like that, you won't be able to build in. So you won't be able to place a plot at all too close to that. All right, so we have our plot placed, and it is a nice little scenic view here. We've got a bridge off in the distance. We've got a forest over there. And in addition to that, we are in a pretty good spot where we're in between two respawn locations. So if we wanted to go over here to gather some resources, then it'll be pretty easy for us to teleport over there. And if we want to go over here instead, it's pretty easy for us to teleport there as well. And then in order for us to get back, all we have to do is teleport back to this plot. So this is actually a really good location for us, and we're gonna get to building some crafting stations before we end this episode. So you can see here that the plot is currently a private plot, and that is what we've got. And you can actually come in and change your plot location. So we're just going to call this Mount Pax Ian and update that. So that is now changed. So when other players come by, they'll see what your plot is named. Additionally, if eventually we're able to get more plots, it'll help you organize and find out what plot you're actually clicking on there. And you'll also see that there are a couple of different options for building rights. Right now we have it turned on private, but if you're in a clan, you can change it to clan, so only your clanmates can build or access things on your plot. And then also there's a public building rights option that will allow anyone in the public to actually be able to build on your plot. Now, don't worry if you are placing a bunch of chests and stuff like that. You can change the individual chest permissions. So if you're building with a clan, you can still have private chests that only you can get access to, and the same goes for public as well. But do be cautious if you set something to public, because that means any player can come in and they can delete or add things onto your plot. So that is something to consider as well. But first things first, we are going to get to crafting. And the first thing that you're going to want to craft here is going to be this wood chopping block. And I like to have a nice scenic location when I'm chopping wood. So we're going to go ahead and place it right there. And this is our first crafting station. So the wood chopping block is where you're going to spend a lot of time when you're building, because all of this wood type structures or structural components are things that are going to go into building walls, foundations, and all of that. So before we get to actually building some buildings, we are going to take a look and see what kind of resources we are going to need in order to build what we want. Now, we're in a nice little wooded area, so I'm thinking that we're going to go with this kind of more hut style, doorway, all of this kind of style. There's a couple of different styles of building in game currently. You have more of this almost adobe or cottage style walls and hay roofing and all of that, and then there is more of this secluded hut in the woods style where it's a mix between stone and wood. And then you have more of the urban brick and mortar style. This is actually my personal favorite style, but I wanted to try and change things up for this tutorial, so we're going to be going with that hut. And in order to build any of these structures, you are going to need to place stone foundations. And we can see that there are two requirements for stone foundations. The first one is we need nice rock and also clay. So in order to get nice rock, there are a couple of methods that we have. One is you can pick the rocks up from the ground, which is a very good strategy to begin with, but then also we will need a pickaxe to make that a little bit more efficient in the future. So let's go ahead and go back to the building or construction tab and look at the crafting side and see what other workbenches we will be able to craft. Now, the basic workbench is going to be something that we are definitely going to need to build early on, because that's going to give us access to a pickaxe so that we can actually start mining some more important resources. And then there's a couple of others. We're definitely going to be making a fletching station so that we can use a bow and arrow to gather some hide, which is a pretty high commodity in this game. And then we will also most likely go for a spinning wheel and a basic loom so that we can get some clothing done. And we can see that a lot of these crafting stations actually don't require altogether too much in terms of resources. You can see that most of them require rough beams, rough planks, and wooden pegs. Wooden pegs are going to become our best friend because pretty much every type of building needs a wood peg for most of its components. So it looks like we're going to need some nice rocks and we're going to need some wood. So let's go ahead and go into the forest, gather some stuff, and I will see you when we get back. All right, and we're back and in the forest, and I just wanted to show you all the trees that we can actually chop here are in the forest. There are trees that you can actually chop with the stone axe. It is not just for decoration. And when you chop the trees down, you're going to have two different phases. The first phase is chopping it down from the upright state, and then once it's down and on the ground, we have to chop it up into usable pieces. And there we go. And you can see that we got some beech sapwood. We actually got 28. And we got some resin, which we can use eventually for crafting. And while we're walking around the woods, it's always good to just pick up any of the rocks that you see, because those are going to be useful for building in the future. And just to give you context as well, there are different trees that exist in the game, and those trees have different hardness levels. And the only way to really determine what tree is what is by looking at them and visually determining whether or not it is a suitable tree to chop down. So this tree looks very similar to the species that we chopped down, so I figured that this one would be one that we'd actually be able to chop down, and it looks like we can. So we will be back when we get to gathering some rocks down by the river. Picking up the nice rocks, getting all the things so we can build. That's what we're doing because it's tutorial rocks. And if you haven't done so already, make sure that you subscribe. That's what we do. Look at all these rocks. We're cleaning these rocks off the road. Just straight up clean the rocks off the road. Wow. No matter how many times I see really cool scenes in Pax Dei, every single one just impresses me more. All right, and welcome back, and here we are down by the river now. You can see our plot all the way up there, just barely. The wood block is right there, our reticle. And the nice thing about being near rivers is that typically they have a relatively high abundance of things that you'll need to craft early on. One of those being reeds, the other one being things like rocks or also clay. And we'll see if we can find some clay here really quickly. That will be something very useful for us in the very near future. But typically, if you just go up and down this type of coastline, I guess, you'll see some clay that you'll be able to gather, and you'll be gathering a lot of it. Also, go ahead and pick up some flintstones here, because we do know that we're going to need some bow and arrows. Flint is most likely used for arrows. We'll find out. And there we go. You can see some clay is actually right here. And, whoa, oh, we got a boar. Oh boy, here we go. This could be dangerous. Alright, so we lucked out on that one. The boar wasn't doing too much damage, but that music is terrifying. So you can see that we just picked up much more resources relating to food, as well as some other working stuff as well. Let's go ahead and pick up the clay. Make sure that we have some of that so we can build some foundations. And this clay is actually a lot larger than it should be, I believe. Most clay is typically in a lot smaller chunks. I think this is just currently a bug that's ongoing in the current alpha. And again, this is a great reminder that this is an alpha, it's a game in active development. So that's what we get. This is a in development game. And we're going to keep on gathering some of this clay here until we fill up our inventory, as well as collecting some more nice rocks. And I will see you all back at camp so that we can build some more stations before we end this starter episode. We need more flint. Flint stones. Alright, so here we are back at our plot. We've gathered a bunch of different resources for us to process. And looks like we're going to need to manufacture some rough wood planks to begin with. So in order to do that, we first need to make some rough wood beams. And Pax Dei's crafting system is actually quite interesting in that you manufacture some resources to make subcomponents, and that actually helps with storage, so you don't have to manufacture something all the way to completion, and you can just make these beams, which kind of store value without having to make too much of other stuff as well. So we're going to go ahead and craft a couple of these, and hopefully we don't fail on any of them, because they should be relatively easy. I think maybe one more should be fine. Okay. Oh. Nice. Just barely over. And then we are going to need to drop something on the ground here, because in order to craft, you do need to have enough space to craft in. So we will go ahead and craft all 3 of these rough planks of wood. And there we go. We unlocked a decorated chest recipe. That's going to be what we're looking for, so we can start storing some of these materials. Another thing that's important to note as well in Pax Dei is that crafting actually takes quite a decent amount of actual time. So when you're sitting there and crafting, always be thinking what you could be doing next. And also, it's just nice to spend some time and hang out with your friends talking while you're doing a long craft of a bunch of building resources. What I did right there is I just went to the props menu and picked our chest and started building. And you can see on these chests that there are some options for access. We're going to just keep it on private, but if you're building with a group of friends or you're building with a community at large, or you want to make a public chest, then this is where you would do it. And you can also see that we have 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 different slots that we can put in these chests. Another thing for all of you who are looking to build other types of storage containers, all storage containers right now have 20 slots, so don't really take that into consideration when you're building them. There are definitely some cheaper options for things to build, and then more expensive ones as well. So build at your own desire, but know that all of them have the same storage values, at least currently. And what we're going to do is press G to transfer all of the resources of whatever our mouse is hovering over to the storage chest or whatever inventory we have open. And we're just going to move a couple of the things that we're not really going to need right now over there so that we can be building with the things that we do need. And that gives us some opportunity here to build some more rough beams and wood planks. But before we do that, let's go ahead and check what we need first. And like I said, we do want to get that basic workbench built. So we need some rough beams, some rough planks of wood, and some wood pegs. So it looks like we're going to need 6 rough planks. And for most of the crafting stations, they do pretty much just require these types of different refined pieces of wood as you get to open. There we go. We got our first failure. But as we are building all of these, for the most part, it does require mostly just different types of wood refinement. So if you are looking to build all of the crafting stations that are available, then this is kind of a very easy task for you to do. Now, being able to actually build any of the things that those crafting stations allow you to is an entirely different story, and we'll get to that in a later tutorial video or one of our advanced crafting guides, which you should definitely check out. There will be links down below to all of those. And what we just saw actually was our first failure in crafting, and we get XP rewarded to us regardless of whether or not we have succeeded or failed. Now, there are some differing opinions on how much XP you're actually getting. The current standing theory is however many ticks of this blue line that you get is deterministic of how much XP you're getting. Now, it could be the ticks of the blue line and ticks of the red line. So the more ticks you have, the more XP you're going to earn. And if you fail, then a little bit of that XP is discounted. And if you succeed, you might get a little bit more XP than you would expect. And now we have gotten our 6 rough wood planks. Our 6 rough beams of wood. And now we're going to build about 2 builds worth of rough planks of wood so that we can get our station. And then all we're going to need is 20 more wooden pegs, and we'll be able to build our basic work station that we will get some more tools from. So I will meet you all back when we are done building all of these materials. All right, so we now have all of the materials that we need in order to build a basic crafting workbench. So we're going to go ahead and come over here, select that workbench, and we are going to place it right here for the time being. There we go. Go ahead and take a look at it. And for right now, the resources that we have discovered have given us 3 recipes, and the one that we are looking for is the 2-handed stone pickaxe. And what that shows is we need a long, rough wood stock in order to build it, and we definitely want to build that because it's going to start giving us access to being able to pickaxe some stones, which are going to give us a lot more of the nice rock resource than just running around and picking up stuff all of the time. So we are going to go ahead and head back down the mountain here and gather some more stones. So I'll see you all when we get down there. All right, and we're back. I definitely tried to take a little bit of a shortcut, and well, we'll have to go collect our body here. But like I said, fall damage is definitely a thing that exists. But when you die, you drop a nice little tombstone. You can see the tombstone right here that we have. It's actually currently untextured. This is a placeholder currently. But all you have to do when you die is go back to where you had passed and pick up your materials. If you did die and you have a friend that's nearby, you can actually go and they can revive you, and it'll, even if you've respawned already, you can accept the revive and it'll teleport you back to your body. And if you haven't respawned already, you'll be able to just respawn on your location. All right, so we're going to go ahead and craft that 2-handed stone pickaxe so that we can go down and start gathering a large amount of stone for our foundations. We've been doing really, really well in terms of our crafting success, so that's making me really happy. The crafting system in Pax Dei is actually a really rewarding one, but it does take quite a while in order to ramp up and get things going, and it does take a lot of time as well. Now you'll see that I did craft 2 pickaxes here. The reason for that is really it's just going to help my building level, and it was a relatively easy craft, so that'll help me in not losing resources for other stuff later, and I'll just leave that there. Or if I need another stone pickaxe for whatever reason. All right, we're gonna head back down the mountain here and start gathering some stone. All right, so here we are back down at the valley where the river is, and we've got a couple of different rocks here, and the first one that we're going to look at just really quick is this impure iron deposit. Now, the impure iron deposits drop, you guessed it, impure iron, and that's going to be something that we're going to use early on in order to make iron ingots, but we're not going to be there for today. The rock that we are interested in are these rocks right here, and this is a nice deposit. They are cold and strangely soft to the touch until you realize it's your flesh that is yielding. I like some of the descriptions here, but these are going to be the resource that we're going to need in order to build our foundations. And also, they are going to drop a lot of different minerals that are contained within these that will help us in building magical items later on in this tutorial. And you can see that when we are hitting all of these different rocks that they are slowly falling apart, and there's actually a couple of different layers to the rocks themselves, so you get more than just you hit the rock and then eventually the rock disappears. So you have multiple tiers of breaking the rock down, and you get different resources from them. So you can see that we got a mineral already. This is phosphorite, and it unlocked a couple of new crafting recipes that maybe we will eventually be able to craft. And we're about full on all of the materials for our inventory, which means we will be done here after we take out this final rock. There we go. All right, so we have just finished gathering, and we want to head all the way back up there, but I don't want to spend all of that time to go up the road, around in the forest, and in. So we're going to teleport back to our plot, and in order to do that, all you have to do is press and hold T, and then you're going to have a couple of different options. You can see that there's some empty slots here. This might be for additional plots later in the game, or you might be able to bind yourself to some shrines that exist in the world. But for the time being, we have two options. We have our plot, which we called Mount Pax Ian, and then also a shrine. And this is the one, as we said earlier, will teleport you to the nearest shrine. So we're going to go ahead and click on Mount Pax Ian. And there we are, teleported right back to our plot, nice and quickly, as well as safely. We don't have to worry about jumping off of anything accidentally. And now we are going to organize a little bit here. By pressing G, we'll move some of the materials that we don't need into this chest here. And then we are going to start building our foundations. And in order to do that, we go over to the construction tab after you have the hammer pulled out in your inventory, and you press right click, and there are a couple of different foundation options that are available to you, and all of these foundations are required in order to build anything else on top of them, except these various fences as well, which we'll probably build at some point. And it's also important to note that for all of these different foundations, you will be able to change the heights and all of that on them as well. So there's some pretty creative things that you can do with that. But for our purposes, we are just going to build a nice little homestead looking off on the distance here, and we'll place our first foundations and then get to placing the walls later. An important consideration is that we have kind of multiple tiers here. We want to make sure that we're as high as we need to be throughout, and this looks like a pretty good spot with a pretty good height as well. Move it down a little bit so that we're more flush, and that's where it's going to go. That's our first foundation placed for our amazing homestead that we're going to be building together here. And we do want it to be a little bit more flavorful. So we're going to have to build some stairs like that. There we go. All of the flavor, all of the time. There we go. Look at that. Already shaping up to be something really cool here. Or maybe? There we go. And snapping is something that you're just going to have to take some time and learn, as well as we kind of get further on in the development of the game. I'm sure things will change in terms of the building system as well, but that is just how the cookie crumbles. So we have built our first crafting stations, and like I said, the most important ones that you're really going to need to build early on are going to be this wood chopping block as well as this basic workbench, and that is so you can get the wood to start constructing things and also get your pickaxe so you can start gathering stone at a lot higher of a rate. And that is where we're going to end this episode of our Fresh Start Pax Dei introduction to the game. And this was a really fun video to get to record. And thank you again to Mainframe for giving us access to this game so that we can learn it and share all of this information with all of you. And we're going to have a lot of new videos coming out in the next couple of days and weeks to help you get acclimated to playing the game. If you haven't done so, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you get notified whenever we post new videos about Pax Dei, like if this is the type of content that you enjoy, and share with any of your friends who might be interested in Pax Dei if they're looking to learn and they want to just experience what starting off in this amazing game feels like. This is a part of a ongoing Fresh Start series for Pax Ian, and I would love it if all of you join us for this journey of building a homestead, getting started, building some equipment, and going out into the world to explore. This is all that Pax Dei is about, and it is a very exciting thing to be a part of. So until next time, I'm Altari, the Professional Gamer.